Blue 80. Blue 80. 180. 180. Set.
If the quarterback situation ain't right, then the whole offense is corrupt.
Set.
You can't sell me hope if you ain't got a quarterback.
Set. Blue 80. Blue 80. 180. 180.
That fantasy pick might look good on paper, but what's his role?
Set.
You don't win your fantasy league on draft night. You win it with everything you do before and after.
Welcome to Football is Money, where every snap has a price. Every decision has value. And every Sunday, somebody gets paid. Let's get it! Football is money! That's the mission. Fantasy betting every division. Every touchdown, every decision. We don't chase hype, we chase precision. Football is money. We cashing out. Breaking every matchup, no doubt. If it makes dollars, then it makes sense. Welcome to Football is Money. Monday film, Friday picks, Sunday tickets, watch them hit. Fantasy lineups, betting slips, power rankings, championships, quarterbacks, pocket clean, read defenses, know what they mean. No hot takes, no guessing games. We bring numbers, we bring names. Football is money. That's the movement. Every episode, constant improvement. NFL, college too. If football matters, we're talking to you. Cowboys corner, cash in the end zone. Fantasy life, coach mode, QB power, draft grades. Every week, new plays. We don't follow, we evaluate. Find the value, separate. Because Vegas sets the line. Football is money. Reads between the signs. Football is money. Louder now. Turn it up. Hear the crowd. Every season. Every play. Football is money. Every day. This is Football is Money. Real football. Real talk. Real money. Let's eat.
Hey, what's good, everybody? Welcome back to Football is Money. I am your host, they call me Boss, and you are tuned in to your favorite football podcast, where we don't just talk about football highlights. We talk about fantasy football, betting football, and having the proper mindset that you need to stay ahead of your competition. And this week, we back with another edition of Inside the Division. And today we're going into the NFC North. And I think this is one of the most intriguing divisions out here today because nobody's been able to truly take control. I think I believe every team got a reason to believe this year, right? Every team got young talent and every team has expectations, but every team also has questions, and these questions need some answers, right? So today we're going to go team by team to try to figure out who's built to compete, who's loaded with fantasy value, and where we think the betting value is really at in the NFC North. And by the time we're done, we'll have a much clearer picture of what this division is going to look like heading into 2026. So let's get started. The defending NFC North champions, the Chicago Bears. Last season, they proved they could win this division. This season, the challenge is proving that they can stay there. Let's put the Chicago Bears under the Football is Money microscope. Can the Bears remain the big dog in the NFC North? In a division where we're talking about Lions, Vikings, Packers, and Bears. Oh my. All right, let's talk about it. Last season changed everything for this franchise. Caleb Williams took a major step forward. Under the new coaching staff, the Bears, they won the NFC North. They made a deep playoff run, and now they're no longer the hunters. They're the hunted, right? But here's where things get interesting. Vegas got Chicago sitting at around plus 310 to plus 325, depending on what sportsbook you're betting on, with a win total sitting at 9.5 games. So Let's answer the main three questions that we always have to answer here at Football is Money. Number one, what does this mean for football in general, as a whole? Number two, what does this mean for your fantasy lineup? Very important. But most important, what does this mean for our pockets? What does it mean for our pockets, man? So let's see. Coaching changed this franchise. I think coaching changed more than a quarterback. Obviously, we saw it in real time. The offense found an identity. Caleb looked comfortable, and Chicago finally played complementary football. Winning the NFC North wasn't luck. You know, this young roster earned that. And now they're defending expectations instead of excuses. Minicamp showed a confident, organized football team. They look like they expect to win, with Caleb Williams entering year 3. And this is where franchise quarterbacks normally take their biggest jump. So we all know the biggest question isn't about talent. The biggest question is, can they remain on top in one of the NFL's toughest divisions, the NFC North? Let's see. Talk about the fantasy football. Caleb Williams is my favorite fantasy piece on this roster, obviously. I actually had him finishing as the number one producing quarterback for your fantasy team, obviously. And DeAndre Swift is a solid running back too, RB2. I don't see RB1 production mainly because he'll be splitting touches with Kyle Monangai. Romo Doomsday, Luther Burden III, both have upside, but I don't see wide receiver 1 potential there. The tight end, Colston Loveland, I believe he can transition into your TE1 throughout this year. So, but the problem with that is, where are you going to draft him? What's his price going to be, right? Also, I keep an eye on Chicago's IDP players. See where they move up and down on the depth chart during training camp. So outside of Caleb, I'm drafting the Bears based on value and no hype, not no hype whatsoever. Let's check the market again. So Vegas got the Bears sitting at plus 325, 9.5 game win total. Here's my question. They did win a division last year, right? So how could they have them in finishing at third, finishing at third place? Did Caleb get worse? Did the coaching staff get worse? I mean, I don't think so. But I think the market is treating last year like a fluke, when I think it was the beginning of something special in Chicago. And that's why we always got to try to find the edge, because somebody is wrong. Football is money, and Vegas can't be right. Not all the time. It ain't going to always line up. So you got to kind of zoom in. You got to look close. I think the market is undervalued in Chicago. And I know I keep hearing they got a tough schedule, but every year, every team's going to have a tough schedule, right? Especially when you got a young team like Chicago. And, I mean, it's the NFL. There's no easy weeks. Even the team that the public may seem as the weakest link out of the 32 teams, they still a football team, a professional football team. You know what I mean? And it's more about matchups. All right. So, but like I say, the coaching staff changed the direction of the franchise. That's that's something you can't overlook. Now, we all can acknowledge that Detroit and Green Bay got better, but Chicago got better as well. Caleb Williams, he should be better. This offense should be better. The team should be better. Now, I'm not gonna guarantee a another division title, but I absolutely believe that they will be in the race all year, and it will be a tight race between these teams. So at plus 325, I actually like the value. Now let's go ahead and go to these grades for the fantasy value and the bidding value. And for the fantasy value, I'm gonna give them a B minus, because like Caleb is the fantasy engine. Swift, Monangai, RB2, Burden, and Odunze, wide receiver 2s. Loveland, he could be a tight end 1, But I think this is a good offense, but not a good offense for your fantasy, right? Not saying it's gonna be bad, but I give them kind of, real mid. All right. So betting value, we got a B plus. Um, they the division defending champions, right? They got an ascending quarterback. They have coaching continuity, and the market might be overreacting to one off season. So I think that there's real value with the current odds if you're willing to take a chance on this young team, right? Chicago proved that they belong here last year. Now they have to prove that they can stay here, right? They trending upwards. They have some decent fantasy selections. One of my favorite value picks in the NFC North, right? So take that as you may. Now let's head over to Motown, the Motor City, Detroit. Who going with me? Hold on, man. So Vegas got the Lions sitting as the favorites in the NFC North. But do they deserve that? Are they right? Are they tripping? What's really happening, man? Let's go figure this thing out together. Now, let's put the Lions in our scope and see if we can take a shot on them this season, right? Vegas got the Lions as the favorite to win the NFC North. They sitting around plus 175 to plus 186 with a win total of 10.5 games. And honestly, I understand why. This has been one of the NFL best teams over the last few years. But here's where football is money got to start asking different questions. Are we betting on what Detroit used to be or what Detroit is going to be in the future, right? Because those aren't always the same thing. So let's answer the question that we always have to ask. Let's go down our checklist and make sure everything is adding up. All right? What does it mean for everything, man? What does this mean for us? So, Detroit, they have earned every bit of respect that they got, right? Dan Campbell came in, changed the system around, biting off kneecaps and everything. They no longer the laughing stock of the NFL. Once upon a time, the Detroit Lions was 1-15, right? And people keep talking about Jared Goff like he's like an old washed-up quarterback or something like that. But I believe like he's in his prime, right? He continues to lead one of the league's better offenses. The skill position, the talent that they have is still outstanding. Jahmyr Gibbs is one of the NFL most explosive running backs. Amon-Ra St. Brown is a dependable receiver from week in and week out. Sam Laporta can get you some crucial catches in the middle of the field as needed. And Isaiah Pacheco taking over for David Montgomery, even though they're different players, I think they still add some value to the offense. Okay? My concern isn't the talent. My concern is everything that Detroit lost around that talent. Ben Johnson is gone. Aaron Glenn is gone. And those wasn't just coordinators. They helped build one of the league's best football teams. So I believe Detroit is still a powerful football team. I just don't think that they're the same team that we saw a couple of years ago. And that's an important distinction, right? So let's talk about what this means for fantasy football. Once again, this is one of my favorite fantasy rosters. Pretty much at the NFL. I ain't gonna say the best or the favorite, but it's one of my favorites. Because you got Jahmyr Gibbs, who can actually be the number one overall pick. You got Amon-Ra St. Brown, who can be a first-round pick as well. And Jared Goff continues to be underrated. So he don't give you rushing production, but he consistently produces because the offense scores points. Sam Laporta remains to be a quality fantasy tight end, and I expect Detroit defense to produce a few quality IDP options also, right? Overall, I love Detroit fantasy value. This is one of those offenses where you can confidently draft multiple starters in multiple rounds, right? So, but when you go to the market and check that out, division odds plus one, let's say plus 180. Win total, 10.5. Here's when I start questioning the market, right? Everybody keep pointing to Detroit easy schedule, but I don't put a lot of stock into preseason strength of schedule talk, right? Because every year we're told a certain team, like they're gonna be an easy win. These teams are gonna be easy wins, and every year those projections change once the season actually starts up. So when I compare Detroit's schedule to Chicago's schedule, they playing a lot of the same opponents. So I'm like, why is one schedule considered to be tough and one schedule considered to be easier? Uh, I don't get it. But again, that's why I don't bet the schedules. I bet the football teams, right? So although we take the schedule into consideration, it's not the end all to be all to these projections that we're giving out. I respect Detroit. I understand why they are the favorite. I just don't think that they're as far ahead in this division as the betting market suggests. Okay, put it like that. While Detroit have been replacing key pieces, the rest of the league been adding talent to go along with what they already have. Momentum is real in this league, man, and it's hard to lose this much coaching talent and immediately become a better football team. You can see they took a dip last year, losing both of their coordinators, and now they lost more pieces around that. So that's why I don't have Detroit winning the NFC North this season, man. Now, does that mean they're gonna suck? I'm not saying they're gonna suck. They could still win, and I just don't think that they are as dangerous as they once were. You know, and I think they reached their peak, and now they on a decline. I hate to say it, but these other teams are getting better. And when you losing while other people are gaining, it's kind of hard to keep the balance there, right? But at 175, 180, I think you're paying for what Detroit accomplished over the last few seasons instead of what this version of the Lions is going to be, right? So around here, we don't chase old stats. We don't chase headlines, man. We try to find the value, all right? And I don't think the value is on Detroit this season. So for that reason, they bidding grade, they bidding value. I'm gonna give them a C, just a C. Good football team. They got fair odds, respectable 10.5 win total. But I think the market is overvaluing Detroit while undervaluing the improvements made by the rest of the division. All right, so I'm passing on Detroit's chances to win this season, to win a division this season. But fantasy value, I'm gonna give them an A, a solid A, and I'm gonna give them an A because they got 2 first-round players that you can draft, and that's rare. You know what I'm saying? Since there's only 12 players you can draft in the first round, and Detroit has 2 of them. So they're saying a lot. They got great quarterback play, elite running back, elite wide receiver, reliable tight end, strong IDP potential, one of the safest fantasy offenses in football. So you can take that to the bank. All right. Detroit has earned its respect, and they're still one of the NFC better football teams. I'm not going to strip them of everything. I love the fantasy outlook. I just don't love the bid price. And it still could actually pay off, again, but I just feel like Vegas put these numbers out there and try to get people to fall into the trap, man. And I want you to avoid falling in that trap. And I'm gonna try to avoid it as well. And that's why I think the Lions are still the benchmark in this division, but I don't think they're untouchable anymore. It was a few years ago, they were just beating the brakes off of everybody, But those days are long gone, my friend. But let's go ahead and head to Green Bay, where they put the cheese on the head and all that good old stuff. The Packers sitting right behind Detroit in the odds, but are they really second? Are they really the second best team in this division? Let's put the Green Bay Packers under the footballer's money microscope. But first, we have to take a quick break, man. We'll be right back. Fantasy football isn't won on your draft day. It's won by the decisions you make before you start drafting. And that's why we built the all-new Football is Money Draft Assistant. Whether you're drafted from the front, the middle, or the turn, the draft assistant helps you build a complete roster, identify value, and stay one step ahead of your league. So stop guessing and start drafting with a plan. Visit footballersmoney.com and check out our brand new Football is Money Draft Assistant today. Because every pick matters, because football is money. Make sure y'all check out that draft assistant. Again, it's at footballismoney.com. All right, now let's head to Wisconsin to see if we can get some cheese out of these Packers. And can you really trust a team without a superstar? All right, now, Vegas got Green Bay sitting in second, and the odds is at plus 210 to plus 270, depending on where you're going to go bet it. They have a 10.5 game win total. So basically, the sports books are telling us that this division comes down to either Green Bay or Detroit. But do the numbers support that, right? And that's why today we're going to introduce the third eye method. Football is money, third eye method. We talking football, fantasy, and betting, and we trying to see if all three tell the same story. Because if they don't, then somebody got some explaining to do. Somebody got some explaining to do. So what does this mean for the football team? Hey, take your game to the next level with Football is Money Plus. Get access to everything we got going on and help the show out while you're at it. Right? Head over to footballismoney.com and become a part of our fantasy family by joining Football is Money Plus. All right? See you there. Well, Green Bay continues to be one of the NFL's best coached football teams, right? Matt LaFleur, he constantly gets this team ready to compete week in and week out. And that's why they always in playoff conversations. Jordan Love, he's a good quarterback. I wouldn't say a great quarterback, but he's efficient. He protects the ball and he keeps this offense on schedule. But I don't look at him as an elite quarterback that's going to carry this team every week. Josh Jacobs, he's getting to that point to where you gotta ask, like, how much juice do he got left in the tank, right? How much gas he got left? And once running backs starting to get a little older, the decline hits, right? So you don't know what you're gonna get, basically. Tucker Craft, he continues to develop into a quality tight end, but the biggest mystery on the roster is not either one of those. It's the wide receiver room. The wide receiver room. Every year we ask, who's the number one receiver in Green Bay? And every year it feels like we still searching for that answer. And this year isn't any different, right? So one thing Green Bay do deserve credit for is winning as a complete football team. They don't rely on one superstar. They rely on coaching, execution, and playing sound football together every week, right? But that's neither here nor there. Let's talk about what it means for fantasy, right? This is probably one of the hardest fantasy teams to figure out in the entire NFC North, and that's saying a lot, right? Jordan Love, he's solid, but he's not somebody I'm targeting as my quarterback one, as my QB one. He'll have good weeks, but I don't see consistent elite fantasy production from him, right? Josh Jacobs, he still got value, but I got questions about what he looks like at this stage in his career. Big Tuck, Tucker Craft, he got upside, but he's still more of a value pick than a player that I'm reaching for. You know what I'm saying? The receiver room is loaded with potential, but potential doesn't win fantasy championships. Somebody had to separate themselves, and they got to do it immediately. And until that happens, I'm not comfortable with investing too heavily in this receiver core. Green Bay is one of those teams I'm watching closely during training camp. The coaches, they're going to have to tell us a lot about who these guys are, you know what I'm saying, what to expect in this upcoming season. Who they going to make the guy? We need